Bet you can't do that with your manual lens. 5 reasons why manual lenses are bad. First, just a quick disclaimer. I don't actually hate vintage lenses. I quite love them. I use them all the time, and I am kind of a lens nerd, just like you are, because you're watching this video. You kind of need to know what you're getting yourself into, and some people need a reality check when it comes to vintage equipment, especially these old lenses that are gaining so much popularity these days. So here are 5 reasons why vintage lenses might not be worth all the hype. Number 1, some of them are just bad lenses. A bad vintage lens doesn't make it a good lens by modern standards. A bad vintage lens can have lots of chromatic aberrations, lots of fringing, lots of bokeh that is not pleasant to look at. Not every vintage lens has the circular bokeh like the Helios 44. So yeah, some of them are just bad lenses, and taking pictures with a bad old vintage manual focus lens can look just as ugly as taking a picture with a bad modern zoom lens. Doesn't have to be all that different. Which brings me into number 2. Vintage lenses do not make your images look vintage, at least not generally. Some vintage lenses have some vintage characteristics, but they do not act like some kind of Instagram filter to make your images just appear like they're suddenly shot on film. As I said in point 1, some of them might just make your image look bad. Number 3, many of the good vintage lenses are really expensive. And if you're going to drop several $100 on a vintage lens, you might consider dropping several $100 on a modern lens, which might end up giving you more options. I don't know, it's just not always worth it, you know, spending a lot of money on a vintage lens. You know, equipment isn't everything and all that. Number 4, basically all the vintage lenses are manual focus only, and manual focus, as much as, you know, yeah, you're better if you're manual focusing, or all the pros used to use manual focus before autofocus was a thing. It's still just manual focus, and basically if you're trying to get shallow depth of field and get stuff in focus with a manual focus lens, you're gonna have a hard time. Of course, some newer cameras have very good focus assist features, but most of them are not as good as autofocus, so you're going to have a hard time if you're going to use manual focus all the time. Autofocus definitely has its role in modern photography. And point number 5, which is absolutely the most important point of all of them. If you're spending a lot of time researching old manual lenses, you are kind of wasting your time if you want to become a good photographer. Now, I'm not saying this because I am some sort of great photographer. I am absolutely not. But I do know that good equipment does not make you a good photographer. And good old vintage lenses do not make you a good photographer either. It's always about the image, it's not about the lens or the camera. A good lens will not, has not, and never will make you a good photographer. Being good is learning to work with what you have, and spending all your time researching old manual lenses instead of actually, I don't know, taking photos, learning, becoming better, is a waste of time. And that way, you know, it can be a time sink that ends up being just a distraction. And in that perspective, manual lenses might be making you a worse photographer. So get out there and take some pictures, use the equipment you have, and if you're into collecting manual focus lenses, go ahead, but be aware that they will not make you a better photographer, and they do not automatically make your images look vintage. That's all for today, and I guess now I have to make a video about 5 reasons why manual lenses are good, which I probably will. See you in the next one.